Brandon Lewis here with the Tennessee Conservative News Break. Excited to have all of you here as we go through the top headlines. Of course, you can find more headlines than what I cover here at TennesseeConservativeNews.com. If you go there, you'll see at least twice as many stories today, but I'm going to hit the high notes, things that I think that you will enjoy. We cover news in Tennessee from a conservative perspective because so many people are just sick and tired of the liberal media bias that you find everywhere you look. Look at the headlines in your local papers. They hate conservative candidates. They hate conservative policy. They hate conservative culture. They hate pretty much everything that we stand for. So what we're going to do today is give you a little bit of news from a different flavor. If you have not been to TennesseeConservativeNews.com, please do go there and subscribe and get on our e-newsletter list. We send that out every day at lunch with a summary of the headlines so that you can see what's going on. I'd love to have you there. And also, if you support us in any way, because this stuff doesn't run on candies and well wishes, we'll send you 2 proud Tennessee Conservative bumper stickers. Go to TennesseeConservative.com or TennesseeConservativeNews.com/support, or just click that red support button on the homepage. All right, guys, we got the stack of stuff here, as El Rushbo would have said, God rest his soul. So we're just going to get right into this, if it's okay with you. So, first story that we're going to cover today is a state story, and it's about keeping boys out of girls' bathrooms. It's a priority for an advancing Tennessee bill. And, this is a big concern. I don't know about you. I'm just going to be frank with you. I've had people try to convince me that it's okay for a man to be in the bathroom with either of my 7-year-old girls aged 2 and 9, and I'm just not okay with that. I'm not okay with that at all. We don't send our girls around boys unaccompanied. We don't let them go to homes where males are in the home that we do not know. It's a bad idea. And anyone who thinks otherwise, and I'll further go out on a limb and say this: if you're an individual who identifies as a sex that you aren't, you've probably got other issues going on that even so, it doesn't probably need to be encouraged, needs to be evaluated, needs to be looked at. And to condone that type of behavior and to assume that it's normal and to put your children in harm's way is a bad idea. So I'm glad that the Tennessee legislature is tackling this. So a bill sponsored by State Representative Jason Zachary, who was on a program not too long ago of Knoxville, if passed, would allow students in public schools to request access to single occupancy restrooms, change areas, and sleeping quarters for all school-sponsored events. Amen and amen. They should be able to. Schools would be required to provide reasonable accommodations and protect the privacy of all students. How ridiculous has it gotten that we actually have to pass a damn bill so that boys and girls don't have to get together and change clothes in the same freaking bathroom or changing room or hotel room? What? This is just all ludicrousness to me. The bill would also give students the right to sue schools if accommodations are not made. They ought to be able to sue schools if they can't read or write after 13 years. I think that'd be another good thing they could probably put in there. It's just my opinion. Schools, if accommodations are not made, unless schools can show proof that providing accommodation will cause undue hardship. According to the bill, students would be able to seek monetary damages for all psychological, emotional, and physical harm suffered, as well as repayment of legal costs incurred. I agree. Zachary of Knoxville believes that will make it easier for school administration to make decisions regarding acceptable policies for gender-based access facilities in school. Again, the fact that we're having this conversation when they can't read, they can't write, and they can't do basic finances in public schools just goes to show you how far afield we've gotten in our culture from what matters. Zachary said that all students, including transgender students, would use facilities that are designated for their biological sexes assigned by birth. Well, no crap. That's kind of like how it should be. And transgender students would have the same rights to request the use of single occupancy restrooms as any other student, and schools would be required to accommodate those requests. I think that's a perfectly reasonable plan. I don't know if you agree with me. If you do, type in the comments section here. I'd love to hear what you think about this, and I'll reply to it after the program. And, should girls and boys be in the same bathroom with one another. I don't think they should. Not my girls. And that's why we send our children to private schools, because our education system is so dysfunctional in Tennessee and in Hamilton County in particular, that the schools from which that my children are zoned, I cannot send them there. It would be a neglecting of my parental duties to do so. Next story: missing elderly citizens could be found faster through a new Tennessee law. If passed, this legislation would rename the Care Alert Program to Silver Alert Program and would change the procedures for elderly individuals who go missing. When somebody goes missing, there's a whole bunch of red tape you have to jump through in order to get police resources out there looking. Now, that makes sense in some respects. Somebody like me goes missing 95% of the time. If a spouse or someone calls, or your kids call, and I'm missing or you're missing, we have left the house for some reason and not told people. We've left, like today, I left my cell phone at the house. And if my wife didn't know where I was, if I had gone missing for a few hours, she might be really concerned, but usually I have to wait for 24 hours. But this bill basically says that if you are missing, and if you have dementia, if you have Alzheimer's, if you have some kind of mental condition or physical condition that would put you in harm's way because you're presently missing, then things could happen a little faster. The current law regarding Silver Alert encourages law enforcement to develop an area-specific protocols in order to find missing vulnerable people. However, next page, we're doing this the old-fashioned way on paper. I got to get a teleprompter for this. I'll be working on that. Donations. You send me some donations, and then I will buy a teleprompter, so I won't have to read this like this. It'll be a little better. If it works for Joe Biden, it's got to work for me. Under the new legislation, they would instead be asked to immediately begin an investigation after receiving the appropriate information about the person's physical and mental status, and it'd also be required to enter the missing person to the National Crime Information Center within 4 hours of the incident. All right, next story, state level. Governor Bill Lee calls on faith community to partner in adoption. And Governor Bill Lee called on the faith community to support Tennessee foster kids to help find them permanent homes through a new public-private initiative led by the governor's Office of Faith-Based and Community Initiatives. I wonder if that office really liked it when he said that that Christians who wanted to worship in person were selfish during the pandemic, because God knows our religious freedoms and liberties come from Governor Lee. And if he tells us that it's selfish, we should stay at home, or when churches were shut down, etc. I guess you just reach out to the faith community when it's convenient and you need them, instead of letting people's religious liberties as enshrined in the Constitution stand. Moving on back to the article. When we join forces with the faith community and trusted partners like Tennessee Kids Belong and Show Hope, we can help Tennessee foster kids find permanent, loving homes, said Governor Lee. I'm calling on the faith community to join us in this work to build one of the most adoption-friendly states in the country. To further support children, Governor Lee has promised TennCare coverage extensions for adopted kids that will allow them to retain their TennCare eligibility until age 18. Of federal or state adoption assistance eligibility, and this includes retaining existing physical, mental, and behavioral services. And that's a good thing. I think that Tennessee should be very friendly from a national level, or from an adoption level, because my wife and I looked into adoption at one point, because it took us a long time between the first one and the second one. And when we started going through all of the procedures that were necessary in order to adopt a child, I sat in on a couple of meetings, and it sounded to me like government bureaucrats were going to be traipsing in and out of my home for an indefinite period of time to make sure that I was a suitable parent. And I just wasn't up for that, frankly. I don't like that kind of stuff as a conservative. Happy to do my part, happy to find a caring home for a child, but a lot of the things that they put on people that are qualified, and I can understand why they go through a lot of that, but the more adoption friendly you can make the process, I think the more likely kids are to get in the homes they need. Moving on to the national level. Biden's immigration floods call Governor Abbott to direct more state resources for our border crisis. This is one of the times when I'm like super happy that Tennessee does not border Mexico right now. So Representative Harry Krueger, a Democrat whose district is near the Mexico border, released photos from an overflow tent facility in Donna, Texas, revealing crowded conditions with migrant children on concrete floors. I wonder where the liberal media is on all this, because Trump was the worst, right? Obviously, I mean, they were just keep putting kids in cages, just cramming them in there, doing all kinds of awful things. Well, now that there's actually a bigger crisis at the border because Biden has signaled to the free world that everybody can come here and that taxpayers will support you and you don't have to support yourself. And we don't care if you've got COVID or if you're crammed into a tent. It used to be everything had to be social distance. Everybody's got to wear a mask. You look at the pictures of these detention centers where people are being housed, and it is a humanitarian crisis, but it's been created by our administration. And I hope that the liberal media gives him fair play like they did Trump, but I bet that'll never happen. I think you know that. The released photos in response to members of the media complaining that they were being denied access by the Biden administration to view conditions at the facility, housing children who illegally crossed the U.S. border. And he has called on the administration to halt the policies that have fueled the border crisis. Governor Abbott says that Biden administration continues to dodge questions that Texans are asking. Is the federal government tracking what countries these children are coming from and what COVID-19 variants they might have been exposed to? How long will these children be held in Texas? I mean, Texans probably don't want this going on in their state. The Biden administration refuses to secure our border, investigate the origin of potential trafficking of unaccompanied minors, and protect these vulnerable children will only worsen the situation, and I agree. Next story, national level. More than $4 billion go to illegal immigrants through Biden stimulus checks. Guess who pays for that puppy? Me, you, and your grandkids and mine, and my kids. And those are the people that are going to be footing the bill for this. The Center for Immigration Studies estimates that 2.65 million illegal immigrants have Social Security numbers, and because of their income thresholds and number of children they have, are eligible to receive federal stimulus checks. At a time where unemployment is rampant, where many Americans can't find a job, or conversely, a lot of my friends who run small businesses, and I consult with small business owners all over the United States, can't get people to come back to work because they have paid them so much to sit at home. Here's a little economics 101 for you. When you incentivize a behavior, it increases. When you penalize through taxes a behavior, it decreases. So if you want people to go back to work, you don't incentivize them sitting at home. You incentivize them going to work. Instead of giving stimulus checks to people who are sitting at home that are able-bodied, how about giving stimulus checks above and beyond to people who take a job, who get off the unemployment dole and who go get employment? How about you reward people for doing good behaviors instead of rewarding them for bad ones? Instead of giving money to people who immigrate here illegally, how about you help the legal citizens once they find jobs, or help small business owners employ those people that are legal citizens? And so, in a new CIS estimates that the illegal immigrants could receive an estimated $4.38 billion from American Rescue Plan 2021, passed by Democrats along party lines. The bottom line is that unless the IRS suddenly creates a new rule barring illegal immigrants from receiving payments and procedural implement such a policy, immigrants with valid Social Security numbers, or a significant number of them in the U.S., will receive stimulus checks. We know that. We know that every time there's some kind of new program that the federal government rolls out, lots of people end up getting money that shouldn't get it. Lots of people end up getting money that don't need it. And lots of it ends up getting wasted or sent to dead people, because that's the federal government. They screw up just about everything they touch. And speaking of screw ups, let's move on to a local story here in Hamilton County. And I'm sure you could, if you're in one of the 95 counties in Tennessee, you could just about read this story for your county. You could just about read this story for your county. Low literacy rates and academic gaps in Hamilton County to be highlighted in podcast. Hamilton County Schools have launched a new podcast with a stated aim of connecting the community with what's going on at HCS and answer listeners' most pressing questions. According to HCS, the podcast will rotate between teachers, staff, students, parents, community partners, and others. During the first podcast, Superintendent Brian Johnson said that the pandemic did is make some of the challenges that we knew were there underlying more pronounced. Johnson stated that the summer and fall semesters, the school systems will have programs to further deal with learning loss and literacy. So this is one of my favorite tactics that failing government programs use, and it's pretty effective. It's pretty effective. I'll give it to them. Failing government programs and institutions, they'll fail, right? They'll fail. Just flat on their face when the public sector or nonprofits or churches or individuals could do it so much better. They'll completely fall on their face. And then instead of going out there and doing the hard work of fixing the blasted problem of illiteracy, of mathematical incompetence, of poor morals, of inability to balance a checkbook, of having zero marketable skills when you get out of high school, or very few. Instead of like bearing down, putting your nose to the grindstone and focusing on this, what they do is they think that they can, if they just communicate enough with people, if they just communicate enough with parents whose kids are being dumbed down and who aren't getting a good education, if they can just communicate enough, then maybe people will lay off their case. And it's not about fixing the problems. I mean, I hope this is about fixing problems, but in my experience, it's you just listen to people so they can vent. Just let's listen to people and let them vent. Let's have a public hearing. Let's have a strategy. Let's put together a board. Let's put together a commission. Let's put together a study to figure out why we suck. No, how about we just quit sucking? How about we just fix the stuff? Like if I have a problem at my house, I don't need to do a podcast on it. If I have a problem at my house, I don't need to form a board. If I have a problem at my business, I don't need to do any of that. You know what I need to do? I need to go fix the problem. And the problem that Hamilton County schools need to fix is the fact that there are zero incentives or alternatives for education. And the best way that Tennessee legislators and other folks could fix this problem is to allow for school choice, educational savings accounts, things of that nature, so that parents can have a choice. Instead of listening to a podcast, you just send your kid to a school that performs. That would be fantastic. So most likely there will be a June session and a July session, and parents will get to pick and choose as their particular students are tapped based on need. And this is for them trying to catch up with all the learning loss that has happened from not the pandemic, but from the government mismanagement of educating our children when any type of challenge comes up. They were already doing a bad job, and then this made it just even worse. COVID won't go away overnight, but we're encouraged. We're encouraged. Yeah. As we look into the next school year, we hope for a normal school year as possible. You know what? Newsflash. You could have had a normal school from day one. I've got friends that are in private Christian schools. I have friends that are across the border in Georgia. And when I talk to them about some of the things that go on in our schools here in Tennessee, both private and public, like their jaws drop to the ground as if, well, why is that happening? Well, why was that necessary? And the answer that I always got about this educational stuff is, these are kids. The kids aren't even affected by COVID. They barely transmit it. When they catch it, they have very few symptoms, if any. I caught COVID. My wife and I did. We're both in the house. Kids are bouncing off the walls. No symptoms whatsoever. And it's all about the kids, though, right? All about the kids. The hell it is. It is not about the kids. It is about government bureaucrats and government job factories keeping the wheels rolling. And so those are your headlines. Headlines chock full of a few good things that the government's trying to do, but a lot of the things, such as the keeping boys out of girls' bathrooms and vice versa, I mean, those are responses to a problem that doesn't need fixing, that has been made to be addressed by other bad government policies. So a lot of the stuff that we are fixing in the Tennessee legislature and addressing right now have very little to do with making our lives better. It has everything to do with trying to fix some of the problems that government created in the first place through mismanagement of the pandemic. So those are the headlines. Brandon Lewis here with Tennessee Conservative News, bringing it to you straight the way that it should be. And if you enjoy what we do here, please do subscribe. Share this stuff, guys. I need your help. Go share it. Put it on your Facebook page, forward it in email, send it in text. You've got conservative friends and neighbors. Every subscriber you give us is one less dollar we have to spend. And when you donate, you'll get 2 Proud Tennessee Conservative bumper stickers. And if you give $50 or more, regardless of the contribution type, you will get a Proud Tennessee Conservative tumbler. And we will fill this with air. We will fill this with air from this room. And it has healing properties, and it also can stop a bullet, like maybe an imaginary bullet. If necessary, you can put other life-saving materials in there. It has other special properties. It's made of antimonium, which is the same thing that I think Wolverine's claws are made out of. So you're going to really enjoy this tumbler if you give $50 or more. We need your support here. This thing does not run on rainbows and buttercups. It's support from conservatives like you. And I'm excited when I get donations from people in Memphis, people in Tri-Cities, people in Nashville, people in Clarksville. I see it all the time. People write in, so I'm so glad we have a conservative news source that I can look to, especially for things going on in the Tennessee legislature, which we cover more than almost any other news publication from a conservative perspective in Tennessee. So thank you guys so much for being here. Appreciate your support. And if you have a question or a comment, drop them in the comment section. Do share this post with people that you think would want to see it. And I'll see you again here tomorrow for the next Tennessee Conservative News Break. I'm Brandon Lewis, signing off.